Let me tell you kind of what the outline of the course is going to be. You're all going to get A's if you just follow some simple instructions. This will be the easiest A of your life, but I hope the most beneficial A of your life. I hope that what you take out of here and what you get to take home, what you take home will be some life-changing principles. I really mean that when I say that. I'm going to give you some stuff this next few weeks that are the best training programs in the world. Now, I wish I could tell you they were mine so I could boast about the fact that I created them. I've plagiarized them, okay? It's a joke. But I have really. I've copied them. I've taken this summary of some of the greatest training in the world and going to give you each week a different piece of that information. Let me tell you why I have some access to that information. At one time, and I'll tell you more about that later on in the third hour of this lecture. We are here for 3 hours, right? It is a 3-hour, 1-hour course. Before I'm through, I'll tell you that I spent some years with Franklin Quest then. It's Franklin Covey today. And when I was there, I happened to end up being in charge of all the training in the world for that company, the largest time management company in the world. I had never run a training company. I'd never been involved in that kind of national and international management. And so for me to be ending up at that kind of a realm was a unique spot for a chicken farmer from Heber City, okay? But I'll tell you more about that next week, especially as we talk about that particular piece of training. But my point is that I got to be in charge of the finest time management training in the world and in charge of all the training courses that Franklin had or wanted to have or wanted to acquire. And so as a consequence of that, I got to go out and see all of the programs and seminars that Franklin may want to buy or did buy before we'd ever buy them, before we'd ever acquire them. And so I got to be exposed to some of the most expensive, finest training in the world. And as a consequence, I tell you that because I'm going to give you the summary of, and I'm going to give it to you for half price. Another joke. If you don't get the jokes, this is going to be a long semester, okay? They each would have cost you from $300 to $1,000 to $3,000 for one of them. And I really am going to give you the summary of those for basically nothing, unless you want to tip me later, okay? And as a consequence, I want you to know that you're going to get some really world-class, first-class material. It will be life-changing material. Now, I'm going to give you an advanced piece of what I want to share before I get into the formula today. I want to give you well, let me tell you what's happened. So you got to come to class. And the only thing you have to do after class is you must take notes. If you don't take notes, just check out of the class and find another class because it's wasting your time. Because you won't remember. I want to tell you what we learned and what these training people of the world taught me about training. And I want to share it with you so you won't muck up another class the rest of your life. You'll recognize that when you're going to be trained, most training doesn't work. Most classroom instruction doesn't work. You might get it long enough to put it on an examination, but it really doesn't last very long if you don't do what I'm going to ask you to do right now. Is this? Yeah, okay, come on. Yeah, no wonder you're late. You got to, he needs a translator. Want to set me sit right there? Is that where you want to sit? Okay, that's a grand entry, by the way. Grand entry. Grand entry. Nice to have you here. Okay. So you come to class and you take notes, and let me tell you why notes are so crucial. If you come to class and just listen, your retention will be nearly zero a few days from now. You just, unless I really pound it into you and you memorize it, you won't have it very long. If you write it down, your retention goes up from 5% to 20% plus. I'm going to make the numbers up because it doesn't matter. The point's what I'm going to try to say. It'll go up significantly, but it still won't be very much. But if you review those notes within 48 hours with yourself, you'll double again your retention and your long-term retention. And if you take those same notes and review them within so many days, 3 or 4 days, with another person that was in the same class, your retention will go nearly up in the 80-90% range. You really will remember the significant stuff if you listened to it, if you recorded it, if you reviewed it, and reviewed it with a friend. If you want to retain something in life, that's the steps to it. I promise you that. And then the obligation on the instructor is, and you, is I have to do 3 E's. This also came out of the Franklin life, my previous life. There's got to be 3 things happen in this course every time we meet, in every class you teach, every class you attend, every sacrament meeting talk you give in church. You must do 3 things to start with E. And we'll review these later in the semester, but I want to give them to you now because they're going to be crucial to having you see if that happens here today. 1E is educate. Everybody does this. This is the natural. You can read me the Book of Mormon in the Book of Mormon class and you've educated me. You can read the manual in the priesthood lesson. You can educate me. But it won't last. You won't remember it. It won't go beyond it. Number 2, and in the corporate world, we called it, the second E was entertain. You got to entertain them. You got to keep them awake and alive in some way. Come and find, every time you come in, you guys find a seat. Try to come on time all the time. Brother Wimpy, bring your basketball with you and find a seat. So 2 is, in the church world, we kind of change that to edify, which means you lift, you have object lessons, you tell stories, you do other things that will help you, but somehow you got to keep people awake and alert and excited about life. If you don't, you go to sleep and you lose it all. And so you got to do that in the class you teach. Number 3, and most important, but not any more important than the other 2 really, is number 3. Can anybody guess what it would be? I've heard it before. 3 is to empower. You got to empower, meaning you got to change behavior. You got to change behavior. If you don't change behavior, if you don't use the will you question, missionaries, right? That was the 2 most important words in the missionaries' vocabulary are will you. If you don't ask people to say will you, what are the 2 next most important words?
Yes, sir.
I promise. Will you quit smoking? I promise from section 89, give the Lord's promise that you'll run and not be weary, walk and not faint, have hidden treasure of knowledge, whatever. And then what are the 6th, 5th, and 6th most important words?
I know.
I know. Will you? I promise. I know. Those 3 things must take place in every time you teach a class because you want the people to be committed to do something that will change their behavior. Promise them some reward that Heavenly Father says would work if they do it. And number 3, hope you can bear testimony that it worked for you. Are you with me? That's the 3 E's of training. Remember that every time. I don't want to hear another boring talk. We'll go over the 7 steps of a great talk later on in the semester. But meantime, right now, just realize you got to learn how to educate, edify, and empower, or don't get up and give a thing. So I want you to know that every time I teach you this semester, as you walk out one of these 2 doors, in my mind I'm saying, what is the information I'm going to give you today that will change your behavior and make you a more efficient, more powerful, more motivated, better leader, better instructor, whatever person? And if I can't prove to myself that I've got material to do that, we ought to all just take a hiatus and take a day off and go at the beach, because we're wasting our time if we're just trying to educate you, because we won't have a retention. That makes sense? That's why you got to take notes. That's why you got to think about how you're going to use this information as you teach your family and future stuff. But I promise you, every session will have something in it that would cost you a lot of money to go buy the information. And hopefully we can do it in a way that will edify you and keep you awake, and hopefully we can empower you with it, that you'll go home with having some life-changing material, okay?